Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to do a video with my special guest, Chris Muertero Gardel.
How's it going?
Hey Chris.
Hey, how you doing? You hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome.
So today guys, we're going to be interviewing Chris on the way he does his work with Santa Muerte, because today it's going to be all about Santa Muerte. So basically, let's get started. So my first question for you, Chris, is how did you get started with Santa Muerte?
That's a really deep story. I don't go too much into detail with it too much these days. It's a very drab story. But it started way back, I want to say about 5 years ago in San Antonio.
Uh-huh.
I was working at a dry cleaners. And on my days off, I'd be by myself in my room and, getting on YouTube, listening to music and stuff like that. And I've always had the spiritual side to me. I have a background in Rastafarianism. So I came originally from being a Rastafarian.
Cool.
Yeah, so I have a large background in that. But over the years, it dwindled away. And then I started to notice on YouTube this skeletal type figure that would come up, and it was always like a statue and stuff like that. And I'll be honest with you, it freaked me out because I was just like, whoa, what the hell's that? Because when you come from a Rastafarian background, the Rastafarians, they will teach you that they don't deal with death. They stay away from anything that has to do with death. So even like when they have a loved one that passes away in the family, they won't attend the funeral service, they won't attend the burial. They leave that to the friends of the family. And that's not the whole entire family, but it's the very spiritual people of the Rastafarian movement, particularly from Jamaica and also here in the United States and other parts, in other parts of the Caribbean and all that. But in my coming up with the Rastafarian religion and the movement of it, it all comes down to this, I guess you could say, well, they call it kind of like a spiritual reasoning. And it's where a lot of the Rastafarian system get together and they do a lot of, they feast a lot, mostly vegetarian type stuff. And lots of ganja smoking. But they have a reason for that, and it's all biblical based as well. But they call this a Nyabingi. Now, Nyabingi, right off the top of my head, because it's been so long, I can't remember where the word originates from, but it's definitely an African word. But it translates into death to all oppressors. Okay? So fast forward years down the line. Yeah, so fast forward years down the line, when I got in contact with La Santisima Muerte, I was going through some situations in my life where, I was dealing with a broken heart and a little bit of substance abuse, which as little as it was at the time, it really affected me really hard. And the reason being is because I was using substance to cover up the heartbreak. But because of how heartbroken I was, how much heavier I would go about using the substance, introducing it into my body. And so it clashed to the point to where, your mind and your body becomes addicted. And, regardless of how much you don't want to introduce a substance into your body anymore, your body will let you know a day or two and then, later that, you need this, because if not, then I'm going to make you feel real shitty and nasty. And so that's basically what happened. So then I began to what they call chasing the dragon. And it just became the worst thing in my life to have to deal with. So it went from one heartbreak to now another heartbreak of like, well, how do I fix myself? And so finally, after a certain amount of time, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and give into this because I had heard enough, at least on YouTube, about what this was. But this is only going on for like about a week or two. Okay. I'll be honest with you, you're the first person I actually go this deep with on it. At least to the origins of me and La Santisima Muerte. You're the first person I'm
Oh,
actually going live, not even in my own YouTube
well,
video. Yeah,
I'm very honored, and I'm very honored,
that's
and I
all.
respect that.
Um, the thing with that was that my boss at the dry cleaner, she was very gun ho Christian. Um, she was a follower. Oh man, what's the name of it? John Hagee Ministries in San Antonio, Texas. Um,
Yeah, I know where that's at.
yeah. I mean, it's like a mega church. I had never been or anything, but I knew who he was all about. And when I found that out, I was like, oh, okay, so you know a thing or two about the Bible because I mean, whether this is not about Christianity or anything, but I mean, like anybody that mentions John Hagee Ministries, regardless which way you want to go with the Bible, whether you believe in it or not, it doesn't really matter. You know that guy, he really hits hard with the Book of Revelation. He gets very metaphysical. He really digs deep. And so, anyway, aside from that, so when she told me that's the kind of Christian she was, I was like, okay, well, maybe this is somebody I can kind of talk to because coming from the Rastafarian background, we use the Bible very, very deeply, and especially the Book of Revelation and the Book of John. So anyway, I told her about it, and she says, you know what, Chris, before you do anything with whatever it is that you're talking about, I would like to take you to a friend that I know about here in San Antonio, Texas, that may know a thing or two about what you're talking about. Just before you get involved, because when you get involved with certain things, you just never know, and you may not be able to come back from it. And I don't know what your reasons are. Obviously she was my boss, so I couldn't tell her everything, the reasons why. The whole substance issue and everything. But God bless her soul, man. I mean, she picked me up on our day off 3 days later, and she drove me down to the south side of San Antonio, Texas, to Botanica. So we entered the Botanica, and I looked around, and so I started to see things that I remember from my past growing up because I came up being a Roman Catholic, Mexican Roman Catholics. We see Virgen de Guadalupe,
Yeah,
the
that's the way I was.
you see Jesus, but then you see it in a different way. You see like these pictures and money and stuff like stapled to the cross.
Yeah.
So very different type of stuff that I kind of grew up with, but not really. This was a little bit more extreme for me. But I just remember it smelled so good in there. It smelled like sage and frankincense, and I don't know what the heck else. It just smelled real beautiful as soon as I walked in. And tons of statues and candles galore. Candles galore. 7-day candles.
Was it Pop Jim's?
These kind of candles right here. 7-day candles.
Yeah.
Or some people might call them Roman Catholic candles, 7 to 9 day,
Yeah.
one-time novena candles. They have names to them.
Yeah.
But I mean, they had a plethora of them. I mean, like beyond belief.
Yeah.
They literally had a candle for everything. So I walked around, and then finally, when I walked towards the back in this small little showcase, I saw this little red statue of La Santisima Muerte, and I said, "That's it." And that was actually the first time I ever saw a statue of her up close. So I asked the guy, I was like, "Hey, can I see that statue?" And that was the first time I held her. And so I turned around, I walked all the way to the front. I asked my boss's friend, like, "What can you tell me about this statue? Because I've been noticing it lately, but because I've been noticing it lately, it may be for a reason, and it may be the reason that I'm seeking."
Mm-hmm.
So on and so forth. We had a little discourse. Long story short, he made me some candles. He told me what to do. I took the statue home, and I placed her on a little, TV dinner tray table because that's all I really had at the time. and I lit the candles, and I sat there, and I was like looking at her and saying, that's kind of stupid. Like, I mean, what the hell am I doing? Um, and after about another few minutes, I gave it some time, and then I did start to feel something different going on behind me. I ended up getting like a really strong frog in my throat. And then there was that sense of presence there. And I just started to bawl, and I started crying, and I just started talking. I just felt like there was something there in that room with me at that moment that I needed it at the time. I needed to just put everything in there, you know. It just felt like nobody else is going to understand what's going on in my life, or how I'm feeling, or what I'm going through, except for whatever is here with me. So you know what? I ain't got nothing else left to lose. Hey, vamos, and I did it. And
Yeah.
I knew that, he told me, you give her offerings, or I didn't have anything to offer. So literally my first offerings were the tears off my face, and I rubbed them into the statue, and I said, I'm sorry, I'm giving you all my grief and everything, but I mean, like, please help me, please understand me, because I can't go to family about any of this stuff. I can't go to my boss about all this stuff. I mean, as much as she's helped me, but I mean, I can't go 100% full on whole story. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, it was just I was like stuck, like they say, stuck between a rock and a hard place, and um, just a lot of turmoil that I was going through, mentally, heartically. But I remember, sometimes when you cry, it takes a lot of energy out of you. And I remember laying down at the foot of what became my very first altar, and I fell asleep, and I woke up the next morning. The candles were still going. He had told me, just leave the candles going, don't put them out or anything unless you're going to leave, or you can put them in a bowl of water. But I mean, if you're going to be there, just let the candles burn, let them go all the way down. So I noticed the first thing was that I wasn't feeling sick, or that urge of sickness of like, I need a fix, I need something to help me out. And so I was kind of like, but I was like, well, this is kind of new. Usually it's that feeling that wakes me up, but this was totally different. I woke up kind of like, completely sober, and I was like, okay, waited an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. I was fine. I got up, I ate something, I came back to the room, I just sat there right in front of her, and I'm just like eating like whatever, like some little kid. And that was how I began with La Santisima Muerte. Initially, that's the real in-depth, full-on.
Wow, thanks, dude, for sharing.
No, nothing in the way. I'm not holding back. This is the first time I'm actually putting it out there. Everything that was really going on. There is a. I mean, this is the first time I've done it in this way. There was an article that I came out in the Texas Observer. They came out to San Antonio and interviewed me about 3-4 years ago, and the beginning of it goes into detail like I just did, but that was the more like written out text form of being able to read what I went through. This is the first time that I actually talk about what exactly it was, and so that's how it is. That's how it started.
And my other question for you, Chris, how do you like? What are you like? How do you feel her? Do you feel her like a cold presence, or do you feel her like hot, or like a warm sensation? How do you feel her like when she presents herself to you?
You know what? Honestly, there's this big notion and misconception that when La Santisima Muerte comes, even after you become a devotee, a muertista, or a muertero, and they are two different kind of things. I'll go into that later. you're not going to feel her every single day and night.
Yeah.
Waking hour to the time your head hits the pillow, it's not like that. When I feel her,
Yeah, that's what I noticed.
it's been about going on 4 years now that we've been together in this spiritual journey. But when I do feel her presence, it's very kind of, the only word I can think about is overbearing, but not like in that overbearing sense. She doesn't smother you, but it's just, here's the thing. When you start working with the energy of death, because initially that is what we are doing.
That's what it is.
Death energy and the energies of deaths, plural, I want to say, because she comes with her muertos too. So there's a lot of that energy that comes around. You're going to feel that kind of, I don't know when the last time you were ever at a funeral for somebody, and God rest their soul where they were, and I'm sorry for your loss. But
thank you.
That kind of grief that you kind of feel when you enter that funeral home room, the viewing room, you feel that energy coming off of everybody and the grieving and all that. But then there's also that kind of slight confusion of like you see people in the corners like just like talking and laughing and whatever and like that kind of weird kind of vibe. And that's how I kind of see her and feel her when she comes around me. It's like it's kind of like that frog in your throat, but it's not so bad. We can talk. You know what I mean? We're here to talk.
That's the way I feel.
Yeah,
that's the way I feel. That's the way I get her sometimes. But the way I get her, it's like I feel like somebody like behind me all the time, and I start like.
That's the way it's always felt to me too. It feels like someone behind you. I've talked to a couple of other people, and they've said the same thing about kind of like a knot, or you do feel something like around the throat, around the neck area.
Yeah, me too.
But you definitely feel a presence behind you. You definitely feel like something is behind you, and it's like really, you can feel how tall it is. She ain't little,
Yeah.
She ain't little. She's pretty big. At least from energy I can feel, she's pretty big.
My other question for you, Chris, have you ever noticed a difference with every statue that you use?
Yes.
Different type of energy one, because when I work with something with it, I noticed that the white one had a different energy and the black one had a higher and more denser, like thicker energy rather than the white.
Well, there's a couple of ways you can go about understanding this, and I'm not a big science guy or anything like that, but one thing I've always read about is how the mind reacts to certain colors. The way the mind and the eardrum reacts to certain frequencies and sounds, and will kind of direct how you feel and how you react to other people at that moment. So for me, in the beginning, I started with her in red, but I didn't see her red as in like, okay, red is for money and love and this and that, I just gravitated towards her in red. It became my thing with her. I just liked her in red. Red didn't mean anything to me, To me, it was more about like how can she help me because I need the help. That's really what it came down to. It wasn't really about money. All that stuff came later on, as for what it does. See, the thing with me is that you got to remember too, I didn't really have teachers. Like my boss to the guy at the Botanica who kind of gave me, some tutorial, I could say, spiritual tutorial. But I mean, he was by no means was he my spiritual teacher. I've never had teachers. If I ever have had a teacher, it's always been her this whole entire time.
Yeah, that's the way I noticed with her too.
And you will find yourself doing some very strange things. So when it comes down to like certain colors, I don't really deal with her in white too much these days. Uh, I
Neither,
recently, I recently had got
neither
her.
do I.
Yeah, I had recently received her in white. I fostered her in white, and immediately I did feel what this other person had told me that this other friend of mine. She said, it radiates money, um, and it did radiate money more than what they say about her in the white robe. But I think a lot of that has to do because the way she was outfitted wasn't just the resin sculpture of her was not just painted white; it was also robed with like some sequins, and it had some gold in it. But then again, you also got to remember,
Oh,
see to la Santisima Muerte or any spirit, they don't really care about colors or anything like that.
no, they don't.
It's us that assign those things to the spirit.
Yeah,
That when we see those things, like I'm saying, going back to how the mind reacts to certain things,
yeah,
you start to feel a certain sense of way. And so that's why they say it's important to kind of choose La Santisima Muerte in a certain color. But then again, that's a thing of the psyche. That's
yeah.
for us human beings with our spiritual and fleshy minds, with an object, black can be protection. For me, black is protection. So okay, so now I'm wearing black because I'm being protected and this and that. But I mean, like green can be just as much as protection. Why can't it's all really about your perception, what you're perceiving, what you're going towards, what your focal point is. That's all it really
Yeah.
is. When it comes to La Santísima Muerte in general, to me personally, I think no matter what, she's just always black, but a different type of black than what we're used to. It's what we would possibly call, for title's sake, a void. Because that death energy is definitely like a void energy, but it's a very strong energy. It's a very, it pulls, but there is definitely something very interesting about her because it's not consistent void. There is some kind of like life force there going on. There's some type of understanding going on there with her, to where she gets us, she understands us. And she's not the only one that's like this. Hecate is like that. I know in Wicca, I'm not big on Wicca, I'm not a Wiccan or anything, but I've talked to Wiccans in the past, and like Pan and all, they are like that. I think all deities are like that. It just depends on how you call them forth, how you summon them up. And then when they show up, then it's kind of like, okay, well, now that I'm here, what's going on? Because they're not going to be too happy at this. They're kind of disturbing their peace,
They're like, what the hell do you want?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like you're at home, you're doing your own thing, you're hanging out in your underwear and your skivvies and whatnot. You're in your own abode, like who cares? And then all of a sudden somebody rings the doorbell, so now you got to get up and put on your shorts and put on a shirt, and then you got to open that door in enough time, and you're trying to hurry up, and then you're like, what? Why are you disturbing my peace? Not that they knew, but in other words, we got to view the spirits kind of like how we are on a daily basis too. You know what I mean? And I think that's another thing. There's a lot of times I think people at their home altars, they just like go up to the altar and they just start talking or like whatever. For instance, like in the religion of Vodou, and other African-based religions, but primarily in Vodou, and especially in documentaries I've seen, you will notice how sometimes they have a certain room for a certain spirit. They don't just go and open the door. They knock. Knock three times in a row. They knock three times, they knock three times, they wait.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I'm coming in to the spirit, and they say the spirit's name. As I would say to you, hey, Shaman Woon, I'm coming in. Give them some time, get prepared. Like, you don't just barge in. And a lot of times I've noticed that that's what a lot of people do, for people that are more into the Roman Catholic European way of doing things. I mean, you can go up to her and you can, Darcines, you do the sign of the cross. You can snap 3 times. I know that sounds kind of rude to some people, but make some kind of noise. You can ring a bell. Let her know that you're coming through to talk. Don't just go and put a candle. You never way. Meeting. You don't. If we don't do that to each other, why are you going to do that with her or any other spirit? You know what I mean?
Also, yeah. Also, Chris, where do you stand on this term? I heard a lot in the community of Santa Muerte. Where do you stand on that? If you make a promise to her, do you think, like people say, if you make a promise, you should keep it? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, definitely. If you make a promise, you should keep it. But see, I come from going back to the Rastafarian stuff. In Rastafarian culture, especially coming from Jamaica, even people from Puerto Rico, people from Mexico, these are places, these are lands that people come from where there's a lot of wordplay. Or in other words, there's an old saying for this and there's an old saying for that, And basically you'll get like me, for instance, sometimes I don't know what certain things mean. It's kind of like parables. And it's like, well, what do you mean to say by that? So something that I always tell people with La Santisima Muerte is, sure, go ahead, make a promise. Make sure you come through your promise. But make sure you know how to make a promise. In other words, verbally, because the thing that I was finding is when they have this whole saying that a promise is a comfort to a fool. And keep that in mind. A promise is a comfort to a fool. So if I'm making a promise to you right off the bat, who's the fool? Because I'm making a promise to you. A promise is a comfort to a fool. So see, Santisima Muerte and any other spirits too, this is the reason why we get a lot of this backlash of like, well, if you don't do this or do that, or if you do this or do that, things will come back to you 3 times fold. Disclaimer, that's not always 100% true. You have to know how to talk to these spirits. So for instance, when I come to La Santisima Muerte on behalf of a client, I treat her like a judge and I say, hey, look, this is the work that's been brought to me. This is the issue. This is everything that's been told. This is what I have charged the client, and this is all the ingredients and everything that I have put together to do the work. Now I bring it up to you that you know better and you can see through everything else because, hey, there's a reason why you're where you're at and we are not. But here's all the work. So me being the middleman, don't bring it back on me if somebody else in this whole situation is actually not telling the complete and whole truth, But in other words, so they also don't get hurt. Hey, if you find any sort of fault, you enjoy the work and everybody go their own way and everybody's going to have to understand. Now, if things are 100% true based on my client, whatever that work may be needed for that I'm bringing to her, then by all means use it up. And then after that, then we bring you your offering. That is what I promise. And that's the way I work with La Santisima Muerte when it comes down to clients and promises. But so that it doesn't come back to you 3 times fold, you have to lay down your law as a human being. I went to New Orleans a couple of years back, and I met a Muertero, and we talked about things. And one thing for certain that I learned for sure that stays true to me almost every other day that I never ever forget. He said, don't be a slave to the spirits. It's okay to draw lines. You too need to have rules that they need to abide by.
Wow.
And now I know maybe some people out there are going to disagree with that, but at the same token, it's like, hey, do you want to disagree with that or you want to be smart about it? Because yes, there's a reason why the spirits are where they are and we're where we're at, but then at the same token, there is a reason why we're at and they are where they're at. It goes both ways. The thing is, the spirits love communication. We can do all the divination and sigils and this and that, but you know what it really comes down to? How much talk and truth are you going to put into it?
That's true.
That's really what it comes down to. Because you know what? They're going to see right through all our bullshit, man. They're going to see right through everything and everybody. And so that's how I deal with promises with La Santisima Muerte when it comes to clients. Now, personally, for me, when I go to La Santisima Muerte, which is pretty rare now, there's really not so much I go to her personally for myself anymore. But if I do, you know, I bring her candles. I honor her every day. I light her a candle every day. You know, I give her, you know, a little bit of beer here. I make sure she has her water. You know, I give her some pan, you know, some bread from time to time. I do little things for her. I'll put some cologne on her. I'll put a cap or two of certain oils on her so she can smell beautiful. But back in the day when I used to carry out promises to her, I wouldn't make promises to her. I would bring something forth right then and there because I was, you know, you're never sure if you're actually gonna, you know, tomorrow's not a promise, and even if tomorrow comes, you don't know what's gonna come along with it. And I think that speaks volumes, even more so in the times that we're living in right now, with everything that's going on when it comes down to the financial and occupation, you know, and then how you make your money work and stuff like that. We're living in some serious times, so right now is not really a time to be going to La Santisima Muerte, petitioning to her, and then saying, "Now, if you bring this to me, then I'm gonna then I'll get back to you and I'll give you what I said I'm going to give to you." I think it's a good idea, personally, in the times that we're living now, to bring everything to her and say, "Hey, look, this is what I have to offer. You know, you make a home cooked meal, make her a plate, put it out there for the next, you know, 3-4 hours on her altar. You know, make her some drink, buy her a beer, buy her a juice. It doesn't always have to be alcohol. You know, put an ear of corn out there. You know, because she does come from an Aztec pantheon. First and foremost, she does come from an Aztec pantheon. Corn is a big deal. So you know, put some corn there. Put a small bowl of chia seeds if you got them. Things like that, you know, and say, "Hey, look, this is what I bring to you, and this is my petition." You know, a promise is a comfort to a fool. So, you know, don't fool her. You know, treat her nice right then and there. You know, why make her wait? Because we're going to her to get what we want in the here and now, but then I'm going to make you wait. No, you know what? I want mine right here and now. So this is what I would have normally promised you, but I bring it to you in the here and now. Here it is. Can you help me, please?
Chris.
I don't really do promises. You know, I don't do promises to her. I serve it up. You know.
And Chris, what advice do you have for newbies wanting to get into the religion of Santa Muerte or into Santa Muerte? Oh, they're not sure. Like, it's a good thing. They heard that you can do all this, but what advice do you have for newbies if they want to get into Santa Muerte, but they're doing it for another type of reason, like, oh, because she can do this, or I heard this, she'll give me this real quick, or this and this. Where do you stand on that? You know what I mean?
Well,
como like getting into it, like out of convenience, instead of actually wanting to get to know her.
Look, not all of us treat our parents very good, and not our parents may always treat us very good. You know, we're all human beings, but we're all born into a family, and sometimes the family has to just accept us. We're family.
Yeah.
The thing with La Santisima Muerte is that it's kind of like that. When you go with La Santisima Muerte, you stay with La Santisima Muerte. I mean, she becomes part of your family. Not in the sense of like your household family, because I mean, not everybody's going to accept this, image of death, this idol of death in the house or whatnot. You may find yourself having to be secretive about it, and that's fine because, you know, this outpouring of La Santisima Muerte out in the open is actually still very new. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like the amount of time when we go back into her history of how people used to keep her in the background and be very secretive, that still holds a lot more time than the amount of time that she's been out in the forefront since the time that Madrina Enriqueta brought her out in Tepito, Mexico. You know,
Yeah.
that's actually that amount of time from that day up until now is actually like real little compared to the length of time before that she was always kept secret. So realistically, I think there's nothing wrong with keeping her a secret if you need to, if you have to. I
Yeah.
think that makes your practice with her and your relationship with her a little stronger. Um, because that's the way it kind of started in a sense. Um, but to people, you know, starting off with her, you got to take that into consideration. You know, um, what's my family? You know, you got to think about repercussions. It's not just about you. It's never ever everything in life is not always about you. You are not the only one here. We are all here together. And especially for young people, like you're asking, in the household or within the family, even if you know, the 20 some year olds are living outside in their own apartment. You know, I remember being 20 years old and there's still a certain amount of time when you're still going back to mom and dad's house. You're still going back to grandma's house consistently for a while. So you're not completely alone. You know, there's still many years ahead and you're trying to grow away from that. So you're not completely away. All right. And that's the thing with devotion of La Santisima Muerte, to be a muertista. You often come along with like wearing her rosaries or her scapularies, or certain images of her, or even getting, you know, tattoos, you know, things like that, that on your own time you feel a certain way and you go about it, but then later on you go home, you're like, oh shit, you know. So then you're trying to hide stuff, and you know, and it's like that's the thing with La Santísima Muerte, is that you cannot be like that with her.
Yeah.
You know, would you hide your mother from the world?
Hell no.
You know, that's what I'm saying. You know, would you hide your sister, your brother, your brother-in-law, your niece, your nephew, your father, would you hide? I mean, like, these are your people, homie. You know, like, this is your gente. But you're gonna, you know, and La Santísima Muerte is like that because she's very family based. Okay, she's very, very family based. She loves children. She loves the family unit. She loves that the household should be happy. She's actually not a very destructive force as I don't know, all these other people, these new people that are coming into it from all these other witchcraft type of communities, and I don't even know if those are even considered witchcraft. I mean, we got some people doing some diabolical things with her that me as a Mexicano, and even though I've been with her for so long, but like, I mean, considering the fact that she's from the Aztec pantheon and I grew up with the Aztec pantheon in a sense, and we look at these people and we're like, what the hell are they doing? Or like they do these sigils with her and we're like, she doesn't have sigils. Like, the Aztecs never had sigils.
No,
so what is that they're doing? They don't even know what the hell they're doing, you know? And so we're finding a lot of that. And that's another thing to take into consideration with La Santísima Muerte as a young person, because oftentimes a lot of people come into the practice of La Santísima Muerte on their own. And it's also very secretive. They usually don't tell a whole lot of people, you know? And so when you don't tell a whole lot of people, you're also making yourself susceptible to wanting to look out there. And especially nowadays, the way the internet has come up, it's just, you know, there's so much information on her, but there's also a gigantic, huge fishbowl. I don't know how big that fishbowl is, but I mean, it's huge. It's probably bigger than the world itself, if you can imagine it. A huge fishbowl full of misconceptions on what she is, how she is, what she does. And
I totally agree.
You know, and like, you know, now we're starting to see a lot more like of these, like, you know, I don't want to single out Wiccans or anything like that, but you know, you do see these other people from other spiritual backgrounds, from like, you know, pagan backgrounds and whatnot, starting to pull her in, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with
I noticed that. I noticed that too.
But you don't bend the spirit because the spirit's not going to bend. If you deal with, like, let's say you deal with, like, who I want to talk about. Let's say you're from, like, the Norwegian type of witchcraft and all that. Mm-hmm. Or you work with those deities from Norway, from old Norse, mythology and religion. And then you pull Santisima Muerte in, and you start doing things with her like the way you would do things with Freya. Like, both Freya and la Santisima Muerte are going to be like, the fuck's wrong with you? You don't do that, So, like, we're getting a lot of these people, and I'm seeing a lot of these videos of people doing things with la Santisima Muerte and putting her statue on the floor and putting these weird sigils and stuff, and it's like, the fuck are you doing? Like, you're going to get something totally different. I mean, you may get some results, or you may get some kind of deity, but La Santisima Muerte, does she actually have a sigil? No. Has she ever had a No. Do people make sigils for her? Yeah. But is that the original ancient Aztec way, going into, the secret way of how people dealt with Mictecasiwa, La Santisima Muerte, all the way to the point to where Enriqueta brought her out? And then through the Roman Catholic, Mexican Roman Catholic way of doing things. If you look at all that, everything that's going on ever since the time that she brought her out, ever since Enriqueta brought her out in Tepito, Mexico, all of a sudden, like, people just started doing all this other crazy shit. And people in Mexico are looking at the whole rest of the world going, like, what the fuck are they doing?
Yeah.
You know what? When you do that, when you do stuff like that, I might be opening up a big mouth, but I'll be honest, you're practicing ignorance. That's what you're doing. Because in doing that, you're putting something else on top of something that has been going on for so long, and all of a sudden you're going to put all this, throw it up on YouTube and on Google with sigils and this and that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
What you do, what you do when you do that? You are basically pushing aside all the people that have actually died for this faith, that have lost their lives for this faith, that have stood up for this. You're pushing away the culture. You're pushing away the Mexica culture, the Aztec culture, so that you can have your pagan kind of thing with La Santisima Muerte. And I'm sorry, but not all us Mexicans are that stupid, and that just isn't going to fly. We're not dumb. We know what's going on.
I totally agree. Where do you stand, Chris, on mixing elder spirits con Santa Muerte? Like, say you have Santa Muerte on a table, and then you put Freya or Thor or Hecate on the same table and start working with her. A lot of people say that she's jealous or very. Where do you stand on that?
That's a good question, and I have my experiences with that. So once upon a time in Chaparral, New Mexico, I was going through some crazy intense wickedness. Now, I'm not going to go into full detail about that. That's something totally different. But I will tell you this. I did have to call upon 3 spirits that I needed them to come together and help out. And the 3 of them were Hecate, San Cipriano, and La Santisima Muerte. And I pled to each one on their own. And then I pulled them together. I pulled their images together, but I did something very fancy, something very nice for them, so that hopefully they would come through for me. I'm nobody to sit here and say, oh yeah, go ahead and do that. I mean, what may have worked for me may not work for you, but I mean, it depends. I was going through something in my life at the time where I was all out there all alone, and I was surrounded by some people that were just, I don't know what the hell was wrong with those people. But when it dawned on me what was going on, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to go ahead and do something very, very, out there. And my only true friends right now, physically, that can come through for me physically and spiritually at the same time, are the 3 main spirit guides that I usually work with, which first was La Santisima Muerte, then later on Hecate, then later on San Cipriano. But it almost seemed to me at the moment where, like, I think they all kind of saw this coming, and maybe this is how it all comes together for me. And so I did what I had to do, and it worked. I saw results. It worked, and everything's kosher ever since then. Um, would I bring them together again? Would I ask them to come back together again? Fuck no. Like, you don't, you don't, they have their own places where they like to coexist, and not only that, but like, it's not just a regular kind of like bringing offerings. I mean, like, I did some pretty hardcore, offerings to get some results. I believe I showed them what I'm worth as a human being, having a spiritual experience here on earth, going through what I was going through, and being strong in myself, but also saying, hey, look, I'm strong, I can do this, but you know what? I need a little bit of spiritual backup. Like, watch my back, please. And I pulled these three together.
Totally agree.
And but like, would I do it again? I mean, I can't say yes or no, because it's just it was one of those things in life. As to other people, I mean, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and tell you, no, you shouldn't, no, you can't. It's illegal, like, because, I mean, especially that, I mean, like, who's going to fucking throw you in jail for, like, putting La Santisima, Muerte, and Hecate together? I would say, if you're somebody that works with La Santisima Muerte already, but you have somebody in your background, a spirit in your background, like Hecate or something else, you need to talk to them on separate terms. And I'm not going to sit here and say, do it like I did it, but you can try it how I did it. Talk to them on separate terms for a day or two, really give your all to them. It's like a meeting of the heads, and then have them congregate together with you, make an altar, bring their images together, put offerings out, learn what each one has. Have them come together. It's literally like a spiritual meeting of the heads. Okay. And then when you do that, then do your work with them and wait for the results. Either you're going to get good results or you're not.
My experience with Santa Muerte Chris is that when I was working with other deities, I felt like okay, like I felt like she was kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna get over here. You just tell me when you're done with them, and let me know when you're finished. Like, totally like, she's like that type of energy. Call me whenever you need me, but I'm not gonna be just sitting here.
Okay, hold on. Let me stop you there. So we have a question from Sharon Childress. What kind of working would you use taking off her hand? All right, so from what I learned about taking off her hand, okay, so her scythe, or her guadaña, as we call it in Spanish, a guadaña, but the scythe, when you take the scythe out of her hand, if her hand is removable or unscrewable, you take the hand off and you slide it back on. Her hand should never be separate from that scythe, ever. Now, I have heard the stories, and I have even seen documentaries where I saw a documentary where not only did they take her hand off and the scythe, and they put it in a totally separate room and told her, hey, look, until you come through for me, you're not getting this shit back. Not only that, but I saw a documentary where apparently they stuck her statue in the commode of a bathroom upside down.
Yeah.
And this is true.
That's what all kind of...
And I was just like, wow, because first and foremost, I mean, forget all the spiritual. I'm like, you do eventually have to take that shit out the commode and put it back on your altar.
I know, dude.
Tending to that. So, like, do you not see what you're putting in front of you in the near future? So I don't know.
That's one of the questions I was going to ask you. That was the next question on where do you stand on now? And I think that's disrespectful.
I don't know. I've made some very grave mistakes myself. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. I've made some grave mistakes. we all repent from them. But like when you're knowingly like taking the statue, going all the way down the hall, going into the bathroom, turning on the light, pulling off the covers of the commode, and sticking your head first in there, closing it, turning on. I mean, that's a lot of fucking processional work you're doing. And then like eventually you're gonna have to go and take her back out and put her on the altar. I guess that's what somebody would do. I wouldn't.
But do you think that's disrespectful? I think that's disrespectful to the spirit.
Yeah, Sharon Childress says, I heard that and saw that too. So, I don't know, man. I mean, there's just some things. I mean, hey, I'm not going to go into full detail, but I mean, I think everybody makes some grave mistakes. You know, we're human.
Yeah.
We all do some crazy things sometimes. But the thing is to repent, not in the Christian sense, don't get me wrong, because I know like when people hear the word repent, all of a sudden it's like the Christian bullshit comes to mind because we're kind of programmed for that shit. I get that. But I mean in the ultimate sense of the actual word, kind of like, you still feel it in your heart to continue going with her in that way. Repent a little bit, talk to her, treat her good, get another statue, put her up again where she originally was, but in a new way, shape, or form. Pray to her, whatever. Talk with her. The thing with Santisima Muerte, there's a lot of these Roman Catholic rosary ritual, which is pretty much like only like 2 of them. They're all pretty much one and the same. But you know what La Santisima Muerte really likes a lot? She really likes a lot of communication. She loves the communication.
Yeah.
Or as somebody else would say, the bochinche, or the gossip in between each other. She's kind of being that I'm from El Paso, Texas and stuff, I kind of have that cholo background, so she's kind of like that homegirl. Yeah, she's a homegirl. She likes to like talk. She likes to shoot the shit, and so like sometimes I'll walk around. I'll be like, "Hey, so you know what? This." I mean, I talk to her sometimes. It's not always a spiritual thing. The spirits. I don't know. I think about La Santisima Muerte and the spirits in the sense of like, if I was one of them, is all I would want is for them to just put an effigy of me up on an altar. And just when they need something, they come to me. They burn candles for me all the time. I mean, hey, all that shit's cool and all. I mean, fuck. I mean, that's dope. But at the same token, it's like, when do we hang out? When do we chill? When are we gonna like, shoot the shit? Like talk to me. And that's a very important thing to do with La Santisima Muerte. And I think that's a very welcoming thing with La Santisima Muerte.
Yeah. And we have another comment, Chris. So I'm gonna put it on the screen. That's what this girl wrote.
So Sharon Childress, yes, she's in my room. I talk to her all the time. Actually, I have a question for you, Sharon. So, what about you in your experience with La Santisima Muerte? Like, to have her in your room, what has your experience been like? Do you get any kind of like a feeling of a presence to you around in that room? Do you ever feel kind of like that frog in the throat or somebody behind you? Have you ever felt any of that? Like some of us have? Let's see what Sharon has to retort. Yeah, we're gonna Santisima Muerte is definitely it's a different ball game, man. I mean,
yeah, it is. It's like a ride. I feel like it's a roller coaster ride. You got your ups and you got your down, you got your sideways.
And then you know what? You got your days where like she just doesn't want to be messed with. She doesn't want like, I mean, I'm not trying to belittle her or anything, but like, I mean, let's say it for what it is. I mean, she's definitely 100% a woman, and sometimes when that woman don't want to be, sometimes she just want to be left alone and do her own thing. And so, okay, I'm gonna leave you alone and do your own thing. Sharon Children says, yes. I feel her in my home. Nice.
Nice, that's awesome.
Sharon, let me ask Sharon something. So Sharon, at home, do you do anything different with her as to means of your altar? compared to what we've been talking about?
Don't mind me, guys. I'm just getting comfortable.
Like waiting for her to type back, man. Well, what about you? I mean, how did you get into La Santisima Muerte?
Well, me?
Because I know a little bit about your background, you know, and the shamanism and all that, but when exactly did you
I got into, yeah. How did I know? Well, honestly, I got into something with it because I don't know where you stand on this, but I got into it because I used to see it when I was a kid. A kid. I would always feel a presence, and I would always see a lady in white with a hoodie. But later on in my life, I found out that I had a near-death experience. I died. So when I died, when I was a baby, I came back. So I feel that's the reason that I have something like that with me. And that's why I'm so connected to her. But also, and another way too, is because I grew up around her because my family members, some of my cousins got into it when they were locked up. They prayed to her when they were locked up, and I had curanderas that were my tias, and they were devotees también. But I didn't know them because they died before I was so. So that's how I know. So she's been around in my family for a while.
Right on, man. What's your relation with La Virgen de Guadalupe? Because I know in a lot of the I guess in the gosh, this is the first time I'm going to use this term. It's kind of like we know somebody that doesn't know how to use the word. They don't like it when we use the word aspect. I don't like it when people use this term Latin X. You know, but in the Latino communities, you get a lot of La Virgen de Guadalupe. What is your relationship with La Virgen de Guadalupe? Because I always see her in the background of you. I see her in your videos.
Well, the reason that I have the Virgin of Guadalupe is because, like I said, I'm like you. I grew up in the Mexican culture. La Guadalupe was with me and my family. Was my grandmother's my mother's Santa. So to her, my grandmother was a devotee of La Guadalupe. So they would call my grandmother a Guadalupana.
Oh, Guadalupe. I know that they call her. Oh man, they have like a short term for. They don't always call her La Santisima, La Virgen de Guadalupe. They also call her La Santísima Virgen. I've heard them call her that.
Yeah.
La Santísima Virgen.
So basically, I was raised con la Virgencita de Guadalupe, but the only reason I have her is a reminder for me for my grandmother. I respect the Virgin of Guadalupe. I prayed to her. She came through for me a couple of times that I see her in dreams. She talks to me, but I respect her. But I only have her there as a reminder of where I come from and where I am now. You know, she's a reminder just for my grandmother and for my other side of my roots. I have my Aztec side and I have my Spanish side. So that's why I have her.
That's awesome.
No,
that
to
kind of
honor my
reminds
grandmother.
me of you get this like going back to how you were asking, um, how do you see somebody working with La Santisima Muerte and altar and maybe bringing another effigy or working them together? Um, I didn't think about this at the moment, but now that we're on the subject of La Santísima Virgen or the Virgen de Guadalupe, um, you will oftentimes see in a Roman Catholic household that honors La Santísima Muerte in a Roman Catholic folk sense of La Santísima Muerte on the same altar with La Virgen de Guadalupe. Now, the reason why this happens, and a lot of people don't really talk about it, but they kind of find this weird kind of thing with it, and they don't really understand where it comes from. But a lot of syncretism. For instance, in Haitian voodoo, and more so, especially coming into American or Louisiana voodoo, New Orleans voodoo, you get people that, for a long, long time, for I don't know how long now, since Marie Laveau and maybe possibly a little bit before her, they have been syncretizing the Roman Catholic folk saints with a lot of these other African deities
with
that help
their
them.
efforts, right?
Yeah, and that's the way they preserve their religion and much of their heritage. That's how they preserved a lot of the spiritism that goes along with it, and the spirits that help them on their day-to-day, activities through life as a people, as a human being. But because of what was going on at the time in America with the colonialism and all that, that's how they got away with it. So, case in point, when you see La Santísima Muerte and La Virgen de Guadalupe together on on
altar,
an altar, what you're really looking at is a syncretized version of part of the Aztec pantheon. So, for instance, in December, every year in December, the Roman Catholic, especially Mexican Roman Catholic Church, in the Latino communities, they will have a feast day for the Virgen de Guadalupe. Here's the crazy thing. So they have the Roman Catholic feast day for the Virgen de Guadalupe in December, but then all of a sudden, the Danza Aztecas are there to dance for her, and the Matachinas are there for her. Why are they? What the heck are they doing there? Why are they there? Okay. A lot of this goes all the way back to Tonantzin. And this is the syncretism with La Virgen de Guadalupe. So La Santísima Muerte, we can look at her, even though she's still a Roman Catholic folk saint, whereas in La Virgen de Guadalupe is not a Roman Catholic folk saint. She is actually a sanctified saint through the Roman Catholic Church, through the Vatican. But yet, through Roman Catholicism in the folk saint tradition, you have La Santísima Muerte. So what you have of her is actually Mictacasihua put under the guise of the best way they could come up with a with a saintly looking kind of figure, but still representing the Aztec goddess Mictacasihua, which rules over the underworld of Mictlan. Okay. And so within that same Aztec pantheon, they found out later on, because La Virgen de Guadalupe, as far as I know, as far as the research I've done, she's the only other one that a syncretism has been applied to from the Aztec pantheon into a Roman Catholic folk saint, or an actual saint, not a folk saint, I should say, which is La Virgen de Guadalupe, and that is Tonantzin. So we have Mictacasihua under La Santísima Muerte and Tonantzin under the guise of La Virgen de Guadalupe. And so sometimes people wonder later on when you go to the Roman Catholic, feast day of La Virgen de Guadalupe, when all of a sudden the matachinas come out and the Azteca Cazares come out, why are they there? They're actually honoring Tonantzin. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're really
and
honoring.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful because I love the Virgin of Guadalupe. I love her to death. She's badass. But like, I don't really honor her the way that people honor her, like the Catholics. I honor her like the way you do. Don't have seen. But I see her like that. Whenever I dress her up in Aztec clothing because I make my own like I try to make the Aztec clothes or buy clothes and I put them on the statues.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't really follow her Aztec.
Yeah, that's something that I've found, like, going back to your question, long already before, because I kind of, went a little far with it. But to answer your question about, putting other deities together on an altar, effigies, their idols, because we do things with these idols. We prep them, we invoke, not evoke. Evoke and invoke are two different things.
Yeah, totally.
With these idols. And so, it's a different thing. But it just hit me, I never see anybody on YouTube, whether it's in the Spanish-speaking communities on YouTube talking about La Santisima Muerte and the Virgen de Guadalupe, or even in the English-speaking. So I would just like to put that out there, is that, when you see La Virgen de Guadalupe, which is the Virgin Mary, but in her Mexican form, which does have a history of its own. It's an apparitional type story in history. But when you come to the Roman Catholic Church and the feast day of the Virgen de Guadalupe, and you see the matachines and the Azteca danceros and stuff like that, like, a lot of people kind of wonder, like, where is that coming from? How come these people are here dancing? How come the matachines are here? Because that's more like Aztec and Mayan based and stuff like that. So how does this cross in? Well, just like voodoo and things like that, there is that syncretism. So even though the Roman Catholic Church is very welcoming to let these people dance, they're not really there dancing for La Virgen de Guadalupe in the Christian sense.
No.
They're there for the Aztec pantheon of Tonantzin. That is part of the reason why you can also see effigies of the Virgen de Guadalupe on the same altar with La Santisima. Because La Santisima covers Mictecacigual, and La Virgen de Guadalupe covers Tonantzin, which are from the both Aztec pantheon, the 9 levels.
Brother Chris, where do you stand on my other question, Chris, is like, I heard this on YouTube and stuff, and I hear this from a lot of different Santa Muerte followers or people that they don't really know what they're talking about. Where do you stand on where they say, "Oh, I gave Santa Muerte my blood. I put blood all over the statue, all that stuff." I mean, where did you stand on that? What's your opinion on that, bro?
Okay, well, that's a very touchy subject. There was once upon a time, about 2 years later in San Antonio, from how I started with La Santisima Muerte later on, I ended up meeting some santeros in San Antonio. And they're santeros, but they work with La Santisima Muerte as well. And one thing that they taught me, which was, I think it was very good for them to teach me this and to talk to me about this. They said, there's nothing wrong with giving any spirit blood, if that spirit accepts blood, first and foremost. In other words, you got to learn about the spirit. Not all spirits like blood. La Santisima Muerte, sure, you can give her blood. Yeah. You also have to be under the control, because there's also this part of spirituality where mankind can go mad with spirituality, or mankind can go mad with religion, and sometimes it can get to be too much, and that's where you get these horror stories, or these horror stories that we've heard about coming from like deep in Mexico, where they took people and they sacrificed them, and it's happened with La Santisima Muerte in the past,
and that's so sad.
I just heard it's happened with other religions like Paloma. I saw some documentary. I think it's on Netflix. I think there's this. I don't remember what the name of it is, but there's some kind of a documentary show on Netflix about, like, I guess kind of like a cold case files kind of thing, and they talk about this one guy that took a couple of kids, or he took this one guy and hacked him up into pieces and put him in a caldero, in a cauldron with some palos and everything, and they found out this was a ritualistic thing. That's what happens when you get too fanatical. You think that the more you give to the spirit, the more you're gonna get back.
Yeah.
And honest to God truth, in my personal experience, you're not gonna get any more spiritual powers than what they've already bestowed on you. So like if I go and hack somebody up and give them to La Santisima Muerte, it's not gonna get any more powerful for me than what it already is now. You know what I mean? I did what I had to do to get help. She charged a sense of like, okay, so now it's your turn to start helping people, and this is how you're going to do things, and I'm going to help you learn how to read tarot in the way that you need to do it, so you can help people, and I'm going to and trabajos, and it's just me and you, but then I say, okay, oh, thank you. Well, you know what? Let me give you more blood, and let me hack somebody up, and this and that. That's when it gets to be. This has now become something different. This has now become a different type of issue, and it's beyond spiritual. It may have started with spiritual, but that's where you get these horror stories. So to your question about like Santisima Muerte blood, sure. Have I given La Santisima Muerte blood? All the time, dude. All the time. A lot of people don't ever see it, but sometimes I'll prick my finger or my thumb, and I'll give it to her, on the mouth of the statue. I've given her the blood off of my back with a machete before in the past. That's something I never really shared with anybody. I've done some things, and yes, it was a risky thing, and there was a purpose for it, though. See, here's the thing about dealing with La Santisima Muerte and blood, because blood and any spiritual practice is an extremely, extremely
powerful.
It has to be respected, and you have to know why you're doing it.
Is it very powerful?
And it's extremely powerful. Oh yeah, because the blood is where the life is. It's your DNA. It's your history. It's your family's history for centuries going backwards. It still flows through you. Blood. There's nothing more spiritual than blood. There's nothing more spiritual than doing blood work. But here's the thing. Just because I said that, or you hear anybody else say that, doesn't mean like, oh, okay, so now I'm going to fucking, like, now that I heard that, no. You got to have your reasons. You got to feel good about it. You got to let your santos know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And see if they're okay with it. If something doesn't feel right, also, especially at the moment of shedding a little bit of blood, even if it's just a prick, at the moment when you're doing it, if you feel like at that very moment, like you feel like kind of like pulling back, go ahead, pull back. Don't go forward. That's a huge indication, because usually when you're doing it at that moment, you're there at your altar, you're there with your spirit, you've turned everything off, no TV, no cell phone, no computer, no, it's just you and the spiritual, and you're there. You got to pay attention to everything that's going on, every kind of feeling, every thought, every emotion. If things are falling around you, if you become too shaky, you got to pay attention. Maybe it could be that maybe it's just not the right time.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Maybe the spirit could be telling you, you know what, I don't need the blood. You've already shown me this much. Just like that biblical story where like the dude was gonna fucking sacrifice his son, and then at the very last moment, was like, it could be like that too. There's a lot of factors, and the thing about the practice with La Santisima Muerte and anything that you do, if I could actually say anything, professionally speaking, intuition at that moment on the spot. Feel yourself with every little moment, every little thing that you're doing. Intuition. 100%.
We also have some comments here, dude. So I was wondering maybe we can go through the comments. There's like a whole bunch.
Okay. Yeah,
we'll go through some of them.
I don't see anything over here on my side, so yeah, let me know.
Let's go with the second one after the one we just read, and then we'll go down.
So Sharon, my intuition is very strong. That's awesome. Yeah, just like I said, intuition is everything. You're gonna bring out a candle, you're gonna fix it a certain way. From start to finish, intuition. Making aceites, making oils, from start to finish. We have intuition. Everything is intuition. It's like, you know what intuition is like? It's like this. When you're kind of staying up a little later than you should, and you're already starting to feel that tiredness, but you kind of want to watch another little episode of whatever the hell it is that you're watching on TV, and so you watch that one, but then you want to watch the next one, but you're starting to feel the tiredness more. So now you start to question. You're using your intuition, and then at some point you say, like, now you know what? It's time to go to bed. That's the way intuition is. It's like that. It's reading. You're reading yourself. You're reading yourself.
And then we have another one.
She loves flowers, man. She is all about flowers.
And then we have this one.
I felt that she chose me. Yep.
And then we have this one.
Excuse me for one moment, okay? Be right back.
Okay. Shannon, I read your comment.
All right, sorry about that.
That's fine.
To go check the back door. Yes, I get that. They hide them in the saints. Hey, Sharon, can we ask you, if you don't mind, what's your spiritual background? I would like to. I'm pretty curious. And you, Shaman, what else do you work with? Because I know you have a Celtic background, right? I'm not even sure. That's right.
Yes,
Celtic. I hear people. I don't think anybody really knows anymore.
Yeah, I have a Celtic background. I work with the Celtic pantheon on. I work with Namorgan, the goddess Namorgan. She's a death
Okay.
goddess, but she's not. She's like the Santa Muerte, but she's more of a guide. She's the one that predicts his death, and she's kind of like the Celtic version of Hecate in a way, but she's more fiery, like the energy of Oya, the destructive force. But in the
I'm not
Celtic,
really. What'd you say? Aria? Aria?
she's kind of like the counterpart. She's like the counterpart of the Orisha Oya, like Oya
Oh,
from
yeah.
the.
Okay.
She's kind of like the Celtic version of Oya.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying now.
Um, yeah, I do have Celtic background. I have Celtic background. I do know a little bit of voodoo, a little bit, not a lot. Do a lot of conjure. I love conjure. I love conjure. I love root work. Um, I do native stuff. I do stuff native. I know how to do Native American rituals and ceremonies. Um, I also, what other deities do I work with? I work with Cornunos. Do you know who Cornunos is?
Yeah.
Cornunos.
Yeah. I'm familiar. I'm familiar with Sununu. Well,
I
I
work
say
with
Sununu.
him. I
Pronounce it.
work with I work with the one that I really work with now is Baphomet. I'm full in with Baphomet, so I'm with him full force. So he's my main dude.
Nice. Hey, let me ask you, what made you want to work with Baphomet?
I do and he represents, and honestly I didn't go choosing Baphomet. He actually came to me. He showed up in my dreams and said, "Hey, I want to work with you. I want to show you what I have. I want to show you what I'm made of, and maybe we can be a great team together. Let me show you what I can offer you, what I can show you, and help you evolve."
That's
So
that sounds like Baphomet. But no, I mean honestly though, like
so
how long have you been how long have you been working with Baphomet?
that's the main dude. I'm gonna be honest with you. It hasn't been that long, but he's been in my life for a while now. He started showing up when I was a teenager in high school, but I wasn't really sure who he was, so I didn't really pursue it at that time. But he was pursuing me since that time. But I didn't go through with it until 2 years later now. So that would be 2018. That's when I
Uh-huh.
started.
Oh wow. So not too long ago.
So no, but he was pursuing me for a long time. But I just barely started saying, okay, I'll give you a chance. Because I didn't really know who he was at the time. I
Yeah.
was doing a lot of research and I heard a lot of different stories that he's the devil and all this and all this and all this. So that kind of. But when I did more research and I studied it and I got when I got more into the occult, which I love, by the way, I love the occult, um,
Oh
and the
we all.
esoteric stuff. I, I love I noted that he's not what people portray him to be. He's not such of a dark entity. Yeah, he has a dark side, but he also has a light. He's balance. He's duality. He's above, so below. If you look
Exactly.
at his, if you look at his iconography, he has breasts. He has wings. He has hoops. He has a phallus. He represents the duality of the universe. He's omnipresent. He's everything. He's masculine and feminine. He's the balance. He's duality. He's good and evil. Yin and yang. Light and dark. Water and ice. Fire and water. He's duality.
Yeah.
And he's
That's
sexuality.
a lot. Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't get, I think, and especially I remember
Newbies.
being
Or,
I
yeah.
remember like in like middle school and high school, and seeing like, oh man, what was this one black metal band from Norway? Oh, Dimmu Borgir. So Dimmu Borgir from or Dimmu Borgir or Dimmu Burger. They have this album called, oh, what's the name of it? In Sorte Diaboli. Okay. And if you look up this album, In Sorte Diaboli, they have Baphomet on there. And I
Wow.
think that's kind of a misrepresentation because, like, I know that a lot of metal bands and this and that, like, they're very into the occult or history, or they're really
Yeah.
big on, like, mythological
Yeah.
literature and stuff like that. Believe it or not, metalheads actually do read a lot. They actually do.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's kind of a dangerous thing. Gosh, I feel
Yeah.
like I feel old now talking about it, because when I was younger, it was like, oh, cool, and this and that.
Yeah.
Thinking back to it at 39 years old and looking back to it, and I'm like, holy shit, man! Like the shit that they were showing us, and it means a lot. Image means a whole lot. Image represents a lot. It represents a lot of who you are as well, because if you choose a certain type of thing to follow in a spiritual pathway, and this can go all the way back to Santisima Muerte too. It represents a lot of like what you're striving for, what your beliefs are. But at the same token, a lot of people out there at face value, they'll look at it and be like, what the hell is that? That's devil worship. That's satanic. That's, es del diablo and es satánico, and all these things that, like, maybe it really isn't, hear that?
Yeah. It's like somebody wants to come through. I just
That's
like that was weird.
Well, anyway, sounds like it's gone. What I was gonna say is that
Was that on your end or my end?
I don't know, but I heard it. It was kind of weird. Anyway,
Yeah.
what I want to say is that, and I may be going out on a limb here, and I know if anybody from a Christian perspective is going to be watching this, or maybe watching this now, I don't know. I mean, but I'm going to go far in saying this. If you're going to look down on somebody that is a muertista or a muertero or a muertera, that is a devotee of La Santisima Muerte, don't forget that when you go to church on Sundays, as Christian as you are, you revere two sticks with a dead man on there. And they say, hey, I'm not saying Jesus is not life or anything. That's not what this is about. But what I'm saying is, don't beat us down for our effigies and what our idols look like, because when we look at your idols, it doesn't look that different. The only difference is that the man hanging on your cross still has flesh, but he's dead. And even if that dead man known as Jesus Christ isn't hanging on that cross and it's just a cross, we know what that cross resembles, and it resembles death. So we are not that different. And whatever you may think is the truth or this, no, what we are talking about is at face value. When you come to me as a Christian or this or that, and you see my Santisima Muerte, and you say, oh, that's a skeleton, you worship death or this or that, I grew up in the Roman Catholic Church, and let me tell you something, for at least a good 17, 18 years of my life, every time we walked into that church, that's all I saw was a dead man with in the flesh, but a dead man nonetheless, hanging on two poles crossed on each other that literally resembles death. Death upon death, wound upon wound. So realistically, we're not that different. Now, they may say, well, the message is different. Yeah, the message is different, but when it comes down to it at face value, let's not be stupid here. When you come to me and you see my effigies of La Santisima Muerte and you see a skeleton standing there, you see death, and all of a sudden I'm diabolical, I'm satanic, and I'm this and I'm that, and I'm not. So why are you, the Christian that is there every Sunday at Roman Catholic Church with an effigy of a dead man, or even if that dead man isn't there, that portrays Jesus, but in his death, lifeless, even if he's not on there, but it's a cross, still that cross represents what it is, what it was, and what it will always be, which is death.
I agree.
Why? How come we're so bad? What makes you so? I mean, I don't understand it. And this is coming from somebody that came up in the Roman Catholic Church, so I know what it is. And you know what? It's time for us to stop being stupid and idiotic about things. Effigies and idols and iconography. If it really comes down to the faith, then keep it about the faith. Because you don't see any of us muertistas and muerteros coming after Christians and saying Christ is death and Christ is evil because look at that effigy and look at the way it looks and it's a dead man on a cross. And then, no, but you guys come to us and you see that with La Santisima, and all of a sudden that's what it becomes. I mean, and same in the end, like I said, wound upon wound. What's the difference?
Yeah, I agree.
So, I'm not demanding and I'm not asking or begging. I'm just saying, don't be stupid. It's just plain and simple. Don't be stupid.
I have a question for you, Chris. For those who don't know, what is a Muertero or Muertera? Like the name that you go by. What does it represent or what is it?
All right.
What?
And to not get too into it because we've been going for quite a while already, but a muertero or muertera, is masculine in Spanish, and muertera is feminine in Spanish. So I'm male, I'm a muertero. Somebody's a female, she's a muertera. But it's a form of necromancy. It's a form of working with the dead. It's a form of understanding the dead. It's a form of being comfortable with death. And most importantly, the teaching is that from the moment we are born out of the womb of our mothers, the time starts ticking. We are the living dead. It takes a long time, whether it's by natural causes or by freak accident or, knock on wood, nobody gets murdered or anything or by nasty act, but, yeah, exactly. From the moment that you're born out of your mother's womb, death is the beginning towards the end. Through life, you are living, but you're dying at the same time. So we are the living dead, as cheesy or as corny as that may sound, but that is what it is to be a muertero or muertera, is to have that first understanding of the self. Because if you don't have that understanding, if you can't accept that understanding, how are you going to work with the dead? How are you going to work with the dead if you can't even work that with yourself? You got to be able to work with self first, to understand that about yourself, and to be okay with that yourself. Not only that, but that in itself, to appreciate death when death may come, no matter which way it may come. I mean, hopefully it's not painful. I mean, there's lots of ways to die, but to not fear death. And I think, especially being a devotee of La Santisima Muerte, going back into the Aztec pantheon, and you see artwork of the Aztecas and stuff like that, not just with Mictecacigual, but like through the Aztec pantheon and through the Aztecas, you see a lot of skull representation, you see a lot of bones. Death was a big part of our culture, and it was actually not something that we feared. It was something that we welcomed, because to go out of the flesh into the next realm of Mictlan, there was 9 stages. Some of them depending on how you died, depending on where you went, but then traversed onward to go on through. And at some point, hopefully, we can meet the Casiwa, which was the 9th level, which is also the reason why some people see the number 9 with La Santisima Muerte and stuff like that. And they say, oh, the number of La Santisima Muerte is the number 9. It has nothing to do with the Bible or anything like that, or the esoterics of today or European esoterics. It actually goes down to the Aztecs. Maybe one day we can do a special about like the Aztec pantheon and the 9 levels.
Yeah, that would be cool. That'd be cool.
But I mean, it takes some time to explain,
Yeah. My other question for you, Chris, is what type of energies do you work with? You said you work with something within the Aztec form. That's what I. So do you feel that something within the Aztec form is more of a fiery, stronger, like strong energy, very intense, very like in your face?
Okay, so that's a really good fucking question, man. It's a really good fucking question. It's been probably in the past year to year and a half that I have seen La Santisima Muerte more so in my mind, my body, and my heart as Mictecacigual from the Aztec pantheon, but I've never actually had an idol or an effigy of her. And recently, a very good friend of mine gifted me an Azteca Santisima Muerte. And since she has been here with me, there has been no rosary draping her, nothing Roman Catholic. It's very, very Aztec. And she has taken on. She's taken over to the point to where I don't even refer to her now as La Santisima Muerte when I'm at my altar with her, when I light the candles, when I'm talking with her. I literally refer to her as Mictecacigual. And that's the way it's been since day one that I put her up. Yeah, she's taken over in that Aztec form. Badass. And it's pretty badass, but it's also scary because, I have like 3-4 years of the Roman Catholic folk sing version of her that I'm so used to. And so now I got the and so now it's kind of, and now it almost feels like, okay, you started that way, but now we're really going to start over. And
that's the way I feel. That's the way I feel because I'm in the same boat with you, Chris. Like, I grew up with her, like, con rosarios and all that. But I got into her in the Aztec form because she showed herself to me in that form. I would say 7 years ago. But 7 years ago, I met this guy, like I told you, my mentor. from Veracruz, Catemaco. So I started working with her in that form, but I'm going to tell you a story of what happened to me. I never told this story to anybody, but I'm going to tell you. The way I knew that Santa Muerte was calling to me también hardcore is that I had an experience with her. Two experiences that I was here in the valley. I was living in the valley here where I am, the really Grande Valley, the Rio Grande Valley. So I had a dream of her. I didn't know who she was at the time. All I knew that this was, all I remember is that I was in a temple, a big, what do you call those stone tablets? All I remember in my dream, I woke up tied with chains on a stone tablet. My legs were bound. My arms were chained.
Wow.
This woman out of nowhere just appeared, dressed up in all this Aztec stuff, drawing symbols on me, praying in a language that, huh?
I said that she was gonna rip your heart out. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, like literally, that's what like literally she was about to.
Oh, that's what I was just kidding, but okay.
No,
So you're in there getting ready to have your heart fucking racked the fuck out.
you're literally about to stab me. But before she did that, she changed from a beautiful woman to a skeleton figure. And when I woke up, I was half awake. I literally woke up where I couldn't move. The skeleton hand was literally kicked in, like really pushed into my chest.
You're already in there.
Mm-hmm. And I could feel the heart. I could feel her hand grabbing my heart. But what I didn't realize is that she was carrying something in her hand. So when she sticked her hand in there, she put something in there. I couldn't move. I was literally paralyzed.
What the fuck? This is a dream,
awake,
right?
but I was
This is a dream.
asleep.
I mean, holy shit. That's a hell of a dream.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
man. Dude, I've had some crazy.
That's my experience with Santa Muerte, the hardcore where I knew this was Santa Muerte. Like, this is who she truly is. You know? She comes from that culture, Azteca.
Yeah.
You know? Her energy, and that's who she was. Like, this is who I am, and this is what I am going to be, and this is what I'm always going to be.
That's what's up, man.
But when I woke up from that dream, I was literally sweating hardcore, freaking woke up, and this was like at 3 o'clock in the morning. Right at 3.
Holy shit. That's right. It had to be at 3 in the morning. Oh, man.
But yeah, that's when I knew. That's when I knew who she was. That's when I found out who she was, because when I went to a botanica and I told that lady about my dream, I looked around and I literally saw the figure that I dreamt about. Because remember, I told you, I grew up with Santa Muerte, but I didn't know who she was at the time, because the relatives that worked with her, they already died or they were locked up in prison for life. you know?
Right. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I didn't have no contact. So I went to that lady in the botanica and I saw all these figures with that lady in my dream. What? I was like, what?
Pretty fucking wicked, man. That's pretty out there.
Yeah, it's pretty out there. But it's a real, it's honest to God truth. That's a real dream that that happened to me. And then the other experience that I had 4 lechuzas following me around for like 2 months after
What?
that dream.
Wait, hold on. Lechuzas. All right, hold on. All right, now we're gonna get serious about some shit because lechuzas are no like easy thing to talk about or when you see them. Like, are you sure they were lechuzas?
Yeah,
How big were they?
they're huge, dude.
Yeah.
They're huge, and some of them were just like whistling, like we were whistling, and the other one was like just floating around. The other two were watching me, and one of them was flying around my head, but not like too low to my head, but like above my head.
Yeah.
Hardcore, dude, no lie.
That's a trip,
Right
dude.
after I had that for a whole.
I remember when I was a kid, uh, this is back, I mean, obviously when I was a kid because I come from El Paso, Texas. Back in El Paso, for a time we used to go visit my uncle, one of my uncles and my cousins back in Juarez. Um, and for anybody out there, Texas and Juarez, Mexico, El Paso, Texas is in the far west Texas region, literally the point. We call it the armpit of Texas. And that's where I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas. But it borders Juarez, Mexico. And it's really easy to get into
Wow.
Juarez. Yeah, it's literally like if you're a drive away, no matter where you are in El Paso, you're at least a 15-minute drive away. Traffic and all, lights and all, it's always going to be a 15-minute drive.
Wow.
If you live in downtown and you're going to walk or take the bus or a trolley or whatever, you're there within like 5-10 minutes flat. You pay a certain fee. Well, now you need a passport, but back in the day, my day, you pay a certain small fee, which was like fuck, I think we only paid like 50, 75 cents.
Damn.
And we just we walk over the bridge over to Juarez, Mexico from El Paso. But I remember at that time, I think I must have been about in 7th or 8th grade. Yeah, somewhere around there, around 7th or 8th grade. And I remember this one time, it happened a few times. I remember it went a couple of times throughout, a few days throughout the weeks, because my uncle was living with us. My mother was taking care of my uncle. But my uncle's children, which were my cousins, they lived in Juarez, Mexico. And so, he wants to go see his kids, and his kids are like, okay, well, then we're going to go. So, bam, we load up the van, and we sped out, and we go to Mexico, we go to Juarez. But on the way back, I remember I had my earphones on, and it happened a couple of times. But then one night, I noticed, and I finally told my mom, I said, hey, Mom, I always see these little owls. Like, how come we don't get those in El Paso? And then my mom tells me, esos son lechuzas. She was like, you got to cuss them out. No, because if you don't cuss them out, if you don't cuss them out, they'll follow us home and then they'll take your soul or this or that, or they do this and that. I'm not even sure if my mom remembers this, but my mom
That's what I hope.
But my mom told me, but don't you cuss them out loud. I don't want to hear you nasty. She's like, cuss them out in your mind. You better not cuss them out in front of me, So I was like, oh, okay, to the next mom, you gotta cuss them out, but you better not do it in front of me. And I was like, oh, okay. So, I would look at them and I would cuss them out, and we never saw them. But I remember they were probably, I got the TV remote here. They were probably like about that big.
Yeah.
They weren't like what we hear in folklore about lechuzas, that they're real big or anything like that. But my mom definitely told me, she said, you hear about that in the Rio Grande, the RGV, all that, you hear all the folklore. But my mom said,
I hear it because I'm from the RGV.
And she told me, you know what, somos de aquí. We're from here. And it doesn't matter what the legend says. What you're actually seeing right now is a lechuza, a real witch. And they're not that big. That's what she told me. The ones that you're seeing, they were real small and scrawny. You never see them anywhere else, like in Juarez, Mexico, and you never see them anywhere else in El Paso. But they're there at the border, and it almost makes sense. And I don't know if anybody out there in the RGV community has ever heard about this, about the Texas border, in the Juarez, Mexican border. But I bet you anything, you still to this day, because there would be bunches of them. And they say, yeah, they wait out there for people that are crossing over into Mexico and people that are crossing over back into El Paso, the United States. And they're just waiting for somebody to make eye contact and then they follow. Yeah, and they're not that big. They're pretty small, man. They're not that big. They're not what the legends say.
Yeah, the one.
But what I'm going to say is over here in El Paso, Texas, and Juarez, Mexico, that is the legend. And maybe people from the RGV community, because I know I got a couple of buddies that run a Facebook group site that they cater to things like that, and I've been involved in it from time to time.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but at least where I come from in El Paso, Texas, and Juarez, Mexico, we actually saw those little owls, but you never see them flying around in Juarez, Mexico, and you never see them flying around in the air in El Paso. But you will definitely see them when you're crossing the border. And I think maybe that's the reason why they get the legend that they get, because it's like, if you actually saw them, they're there in droves, they're there in bunches at the border. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But how come you don't see them flying in droves in Mexico? How come you don't see them flying in droves in El Paso? No, because they're there kind of like stalking. You know what I mean? It's that kind of like legend that builds up. How true is it? I don't know. But I remember that my mom was like, you gotta cuss them out, you gotta cuss them out. But I don't want to hear
I grew up también, dude. Like when I was growing up, I would always hear, "Be careful, or la lechuza will get you. Hurry, come inside. Don't talk to the lechuza. Come inside."
Yeah.
Don't whistle. I grew up with that, But I'm gonna take two more questions and then we'll end the interview. There's one question we're here from somebody wants to know this.
What does it mean if you see the number 13 a lot? All right. So the number 13, all right, so here's the thing with me. When I got involved with La Santisima Muerte, and that's a very good question because it's going to bring up something else. LSS Guido, I hope I'm not butchering that. Probably did. But you know who I'm talking to. The question was, what does it mean if you see the number 13? Okay, so one thing that I've learned in the practice of La Santisima Muerte, when it began, I did start to notice numbers, and I had to learn how to separate the numbers and then add the numbers. So when you see the number 13, when you see two numbers together, you actually add them. So 3 plus 1 is 4. Now, when you take the number 4, you have a certain energy. Particularly, I don't deal with the number 4, so I'm not going to sit here and lie to you because that'd be stupid, on my part to do. But I will be honest with you. One thing that I like to do, I like to go on Google and I look up Oh, what's her name? I don't even know if she still has that website up anymore. Um, Something and Sacred Scrolls, or look up Sacred Scrolls angel numbers. Yeah, Sacred Scrolls angel numbers, and look up the number 13. It will give you a list of how to break down the 3 and the 1. It will give you the 1, and then it will give you the 3, and then it will add it down to you to give you the number 4, and then it will break down what the number 4 means. Um, Now, as a tarot guidance reader, what I can tell you is that the number 1 definitely starts with, it's not the complete fool, but it is the fool. There's a lot of magic in it to it when it comes down to the magician and whatnot. Um, but also the number 13, when it comes down to it, if you really want to bring it down to just a whole number by itself, just 13, one thing I can tell you is that the number 13 in the tarot represents death. It's the death card. And for a lot of people that are not akin to, that are not privy to the tarot and how the tarot works and what certain cards mean and meanings to them, um, honestly, the number 13 and the 13th major arcana. Now, if you are somebody that is not deeply into the tarot, there are two differences. So you have a certain stack of the tarot cards that are known as the major arcana and a larger, thicker stack that are known as the minor arcana. The minor arcana consists of pretty much what you would call your regular poker set of cards. That's pretty much them, with 4 extra cards to each suit. Okay? But in the major arcana, the 13th card represents death. And death represents, it's not a bad card. It's actually a very good card, whether it comes up right side up or upside down, also depending on the reader. Because there are readers that don't read reversals, or in other words, upside down cards. And then there are readers like myself that we do read upside down cards or right side up cards, depending on where they lay. It's considered an art in a sense, at least from what I've read in other articles, they call it an art or whatever. It's just the way I read cards. But the 13th major arcana card is the death card, and it represents manifestations based on the end of old things and the beginning of new things. Now, here's the thing. If your card comes right side up, okay, 13, you're going to see a depiction of death riding on a horse. You're going to see the papacy. There's that noise again.
You hear that?
Yeah, did you hear that noise? All right.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's gone. So getting back to what I was saying. So you're going to get the papacy and its depictions. So you can go very deep into that. It can say, you know what, because the papacy depiction with the death horse riding above it, maybe it's a time of your spirituality where maybe you've reached a crossroads to where you're a very spiritual person, but there's a certain point in your spirituality where maybe you may need to cut things down or trample it down, and now it's time to move on. Or in other words, you need more spiritual growth, but you can't grow if you keep on holding on to that particular spiritual growth that's going on at that very moment. And maybe that may be a cause of the stagnation that you may feel. However, if the death card, the 13th major arcana death card, comes upside down, then maybe you're not indulging enough into your spirituality. And maybe you do need to go into your spirituality. The papacy does not always represent Roman Catholicism or Christianity in the card, but it definitely represents some type of spiritual aspect. And death is coming to make a transformation. Also, the number 13 and the 13th major arcana, here's the other thing. As a tarot guidance reader, it depends on what kind of reading I'm doing for you. So let's say I'm doing a business reading, not a love reading, not a marriage reading. I'm doing a business reading, let's say for an accountant. This means something totally different. So maybe this accountant is not indulging enough with certain particular types of numbers or a certain business acclamation that he needs to respond to. Um, it depends on the type of reading it is. If it's a love reading, then maybe if it comes up upside down, then maybe it's time to put an end to the current relationship, or maybe even hey, for some people, depending on what other cards see, that's another thing too. Other cards will come up. The death card doesn't come up alone. We're going to put out a couple of other cards, and we're going to put it all together, and we're going to make a map out, and we're going to find out what's going on. So that death card, if it comes up upside down, maybe you're doing things right. And if you're wondering, hey, am I leaving the right person or this or that? I mean, it just depends what your reading is all about. If it's about bills in the household, it depends on if it comes up right upside up or upside down. It depends on the reading. And that's why people come to readers, because we lay the cards out. So the number 13th major arcana card is not always a bad card. It's not always a good card. It depends on what type of reading we're doing for you. Now, what LSS Guido is asking, what does it mean if you see the number 13 a lot? If you see the number 13 a lot, like for instance, for myself, I see the number 33 a lot. And that doesn't mean just here at home, on the TV, I see it all the time, but that's me. I see the number 33 all the time. There's some people that see the number 13 all the time. And nobody will believe them no matter how much they point it out to one particular person. If you see the number 13 a lot, you see it. Believe me, I know what that's like. I see the number 33 a lot. You're going to do your research on it. You're going to try to understand what the two divided numbers mean. What is, like in my case, what was 3 and what was 3, but then later on how 3 and 3 come together. So for me, it was the as above, so below, right? Okay. You, right? You see what I'm saying? Like that's how much I've had to learn about seeing the number 33 on my end. Now, for this particular individual seeing the number 13, the number 13 can mean a bunch of different things. You're going to have to go on Google. You're going to have to do some esoteric study. You will probably find yourself looking into Masonic studies. You may find yourself looking into studies like with, what's his name? Aleister Crowley. You may look into the Golden Dawn understandings. As a matter of fact, another great way, because a lot of us witches and brujos and brujas, we are very much people that, we are the type of people that, yes, we're into the occult, but you know what the occult really is? Pictures. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of what the occult is a lot of pictures, even what they call sigils or whatever, but the number 13 can mean a lot of different things. So you want to go on Pinterest, and because these are things that I do in my personal time. When I have a question about stuff, I'll go on Pinterest and I'll look up spiritual meaning of the number 13. Go on Google, spiritual meaning of the number 13. And then when it brings you a bunch of shit, then go on images and click on images. And when you click on images, you're going to start to see a lot of different stuff. Things are going to start to appeal to you. What you got now in the here and now, the technology you got in the here and now, the internet, your computer, your phone, your laptop, spiritual questions. I always do this. Type in whatever you have a question and then put spiritual meaning of 13, spiritual meaning of 33, spiritual meaning of la 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 la, always spiritual meaning of this or that. Okay, you're going to look up whatever it has to say, and then when you're done with that, you're also going to look up images. Always click on images. images will tell you a lot, because those of us in the occult world, in the esoteric world, those of us that are very spiritual, we're very visual people. The visual appeals to us, and that's why in our studies as witches, as brujos and brujas, of all different degrees and all different backgrounds, image has always actually, if you look at the esoteric studies, image plays a huge role in everything that we do spiritual. Image is everything. Idols are everything. Effigies are everything. Pictures are everything. They hold knowledge. Just like yourself. You got the Virgen de Guadalupe behind you. There's a lot going on in that. There's a lot going on. She's sitting on a crescent moon. There's an angel holding it up. She's got the rays of the light. She's got, there is so much going on. You know what I'm saying? And to dive into that, it's something that you're going to learn about yourself too. What connects you to that? Why am I so drawn to that? And why am I seeing this? Such as this person, LSS Guido. Why am I seeing the number 13 so much? What is Spirit trying to tell me? So getting back to you, LSS Guido, the number 13 can be a spirit number, what we call spiritual numbers or spirit numbers. Go on Google, look up the spiritual meaning or spiritual significance of the number 13. Look up a couple of those things that they will tell you, but then also click on images and see what the number 13 images start to bring out. And when you click on certain images, they will give you more links to click on more things, and you start getting deeper and deeper, and you'll find things. You will find things, and you know what? At the same token, here's the thing: have fun learning, because if you're not having fun learning, then you're not going to learn anything at all.
So basically, the last question that we have, Chris, for the night is, we have a question off of YouTube from one of my followers on Facebook. They want to know if I don't smoke or I don't drink, can I offer Santa Muerte something else and as a substitute?
Absolutely.
I guess.
Absolutely. Look, you know what? Here's the thing that I've learned. La Santisima Muerte, she likes anything that you bring to the table. She likes jewelry, she likes glitter, she likes gold, she likes silver, she likes balloons, she likes flowers, she likes confetti, she likes pan dulce, she likes coconut. This girl loves everything, okay? What you bring to the table, what you bring to the altar to offer her is a representation of yourself. Always remember that. Whatever you offer her is a representation of yourself at that moment. She loves coffee, she loves cake, she loves wine. She likes just plain out water. She loves incense, she loves fire, she loves Florida water, she loves patchouli, she loves marigolds, she loves, there's no end to this. You know why? Because she is the ultimate personification of death. And imagine if, let's put it into context. Imagine if you were dead already, in the grave. But every so often, your loved ones come and visit you. Wouldn't you like it? Being dead, what are you going to crave? You're going to crave everything. You're going to crave wine. You're going to crave flowers. You're going to crave cake. You're going to crave alcohol. You might crave a little bit of blood. You might, it's, think in terms of that, because she's the ultimate personification of not just herself as death, Mictacasihual, the overbearer of Migla, of the underworld, but of the muertos, of the dead. And so just like yourself being the living dead in the time living yet dying at the same moment, but living through it. There are things that we like. We like, like for me, for instance, I love German chocolate cake. I love, oh yeah, I love German chocolate cake. It's the shit. My favorite cake of all time from
I never
childhood.
had it.
My favorite childhood cake is carrot cake. I love carrot cake.
I love carrot cake.
I love champurrado. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that, but it's a Mexican kind of thing.
Champurrado.
Yeah, I love champurrado. That's a more holiday kind of drink. I love stuff like that. I love menudo. I love pozole. I love arroz. I love my favorite food of all time is tacos. So hey, when I'm dead, bring a bit of tacos. It's a thing like
that.
It's a representation of yourself, and it's a representation of what you bring to the table. She likes anything that you like as long as you come with respect, as long as you come with honor, because when you come with respect and honor to her, you're also respecting and honoring yourself.
She also added a question to that, Chris. She's saying, do you need to smoke her out in order to activate her statue?
No, you don't. That's a big misconception. It goes back to see, here's the thing with marijuana, with cannabis, with cannabosum, biblically speaking, because cannabis is mentioned in the Bible as well, cannabosum in the Old Testament. Cannabis is a global thing, but it does have a big role to play in the Mexica or the Mexican culture. Not by means because of what the American government has said. No. But we're talking about realistically speaking, marijuana or cannabis or marijuana. It really does play a big role in Mexican culture. It came to Mexico by means of trade with the Indians from India, actually, and that's how it made its way into Mexico. It has the same history with the Jamaicans too. Marijuana made it to Jamaica by means of the Indians, the indentured Indians that were working the rice paddies in Jamaica.
My mistake, Chris. You were talking about a puro, a cigar. I thought you were talking about.
Well, let me finish that because maybe there may be somebody now or maybe later on that may see this video. You don't need to use marijuana to blow all over the Santisima Muerte, but you can. She likes everything. She likes anything. Now, to use a puro, what we call a puro, or for our straight up Anglo-American people, puro for us Latinos is a cigar. And it's a non-marijuana cigar. It's a straight-up tobacco cigar, and it could be any type of cigar. It could be from Cuba. It could be from here or there. It could be one of those little white owl, buy 3 for $1 type puros from the corner store. It doesn't matter because when it really comes down to it, the ancient Aztecs are still a part of the Americas. And part of the America's natural peacemaking incense and smokable blend was always tobacco. It was always tobacco. So you get it here in the Americas, you get it in the South America, North America. It's a constant thing. And so it was even a thing with the Aztecas too, was tobacco. However, the difference is that it was not really that big a prominent thing with the Aztecas, but tobacco was there. It was there, but it wasn't a really big thing. The tobacco or tobacco was more of the Americas here.
Yeah, the natives.
Yeah, it was
Native
more
American.
Yeah, it's more so here in the United States kind of thing in its culture, but we're not saying that it wasn't there with the Aztecs, with the Mayas, with the Olmec, or anything like that. I mean, it was very much a part of that because that plant grew all over the Americas. It was very prominent all over the Americas, all the way up into Canada. So, That's just staying consistent with it. So there's nothing wrong with it. Now, if you're asking about like lighting it and then flipping it over, putting it to your mouth, and then shotgunning it all over her statue, you can do that if you want. But that practice actually comes from like Santeria, Candomblé, even some kind of voodoo rites from Haiti, and going on into what people have, I'm going to say, appropriated in into Louisiana, Louisiana, uh, American voodoo and hoodoo. But there's nothing wrong with that. These are things that people have learned, and the reason why they carry on is because we have learned that when we do this, there's results and it works. So why change it? Now, it may not work for everybody. You know, your Santisima Muerte effigy and idol may like certain things that your best friend that's a Muertista or Muertero or whatever, they work different. You know, it's all about it's literally all about relationship. It's what we like together, and what you and La Santísima Muerte like together may not be the same thing that the neighbor and La Santísima Muerte like together, because everybody has their own needs and wants. You know what I mean?
And so
we're not all religions and all that stuff. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. There really is.
Yeah.
It seems really complicated, but it's really not. When it comes down to it, it's really about intuition and learning La Santísima Muerte with you and how she works with you, and listening to her and communicating with her and being one with her, and not straying away, and honoring. Because, when you honor La Santísima Muerte, or any deity, it doesn't have to be her, it could be Hecate, it could be this, you're honoring yourself, you're paying attention to self. And that is something that, honestly, the world at hand right now still is missing. People don't know how to honor themselves. They don't know how to pay attention.
The one of my followers that wrote that comment about the puro, she said, "Thank you so much."
You're very welcome. Good question too.
So basically, guys, well, thank you for coming, guys. But this is the end of the interview. Where can they reach you, Chris? Where can the people want to reach you if they want to?
Okay, so if anybody wants to reach me, you can email me, all lowercase, at the Guard Owl. That is TheGuard @gmail.com. You can also get at me on Facebook at Muertero Chris, the Guard Owl, at gmail.com. Or I also have a YouTube, I also have a Facebook business page, which is the Guard Owl. And you can also find me on YouTube here at Muertero Chris, the Guard Owl. So those are the ways. In any of those ways, if you want to book a reading with me, I'd be more than happy to do it with you. On my YouTube and on my Facebook and on my Facebook business page, I do have the links set up for PayPal and Cash App. So PayPal and Cash App are the two ways that I do accept payment to book your reading. So go ahead and pay it forward, and I will go ahead and book your reading for whenever you are ready for it, Monday through Sunday. It's all up to you, and I'm here at your service.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you too, Shaman.
I wanted to wish you good night, and thank you for joining. Thank you for being here,
Likewise.
Chris. So,
likewise. Thank you very much. Man. Appreciate it.
Let me, so just bear with me. Thank you, guys. Let me end the broadcast, and I'll talk to you in a minute, Chris.
All right. Sounds good. I'll see you all later.